Every single one of us, at some point in our lives, will be tested. We'll face adversity, heartbreak, failure, rejection, or loss. And in those moments, the world will ask us a silent question: will you break or will you rise? Strength isn't about pretending things don't hurt. It's not about denying pain or pushing away emotion. Real strength comes from understanding, not avoidance. It's about the internal systems we build, systems of mindset, values, purpose, and discipline that allow us to move forward even when everything in us wants to stop. So how do you stay strong no matter what? Let's start here. You must understand why you want to be strong in the first place. If you don't know your reason, your cause, your driving purpose, then strength will feel forced. And when pressure comes, it will collapse. But when your strength is rooted in something deeper than ego, something beyond the surface, like the people you love, the mission you believe in, or the legacy you want to leave, you tap into a fuel source that doesn't burn out. Second, we must recognize that resilience is a skill, not a personality trait. Some people say, I'm just not mentally tough. That's not true. Mental toughness is like a muscle. You train it, you build it. And you build it by doing the hard things on purpose. Waking up when it's easier to sleep in, showing up when no one claps, staying kind in a world that isn't. The third truth is this: people are your greatest strength. Isolation creates weakness. Connection creates courage. When you surround yourself with people who hold you to your values, not your moods, you build an environment that reinforces your strength. So many people try to stay strong alone. That's not noble. That's fragile. Strength is a shared effort. Fourth, language matters. The words you say to yourself are either bricks or sledgehammers. They either build you or break you. When the voice in your head tells you you're not good enough, you must be ready to respond not with false positivity, but with truth. I'm not there yet, but I've come too far to stop. This is hard, but I've done hard before. That kind of dialogue doesn't ignore reality. It commands it. And finally, to stay strong no matter what, you have to decide who you are before the storm comes. Strength isn't built in the storm. It's revealed there. It's built in the quiet, in the morning routines, in the commitments you make to yourself and actually keep, in the way you act when no one's watching. That's when your character forms. And when life shakes you, your character is what stands firm. Staying strong no matter what isn't a trick. It's not a hack. It's a way of living. It's what happens when your purpose is clear, your values are non-negotiable, your habits are aligned, and your relationships are rich with truth and encouragement. This world doesn't need perfect people. It needs strong people, and strong people are simply those who choose to keep going, even when there's every reason to stop. Fifth keynotes of the speech: purpose fuels strength. True resilience begins with a clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing. Without purpose, strength has no anchor. Resilience is trainable. Mental toughness isn't fixed. It's built through repeated acts of discipline, courage, and perseverance. Connection builds courage. Surrounding yourself with supportive, truth-speaking people strengthens your ability to endure challenges. Self-talk shapes strength. The way you speak to yourself in private defines how you show up in public. Your inner voice must become your ally. Character prepares you for the storm. Strength is cultivated in quiet, daily disciplines, and revealed in moments of pressure. When we talk about strength, most people rush to think about willpower, determination, or some mystical inner grit. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll notice something more foundational beneath all that. Strength, real lasting strength, is always tied to a clear sense of purpose. Without purpose, our actions become mechanical, our energy fades quickly, and when challenges hit, we lack the inner structure to hold ourselves together. But when we understand why we do what we do, we gain a level of resilience that's not easily shaken. Purpose isn't about having all the answers. It's not a grand, dramatic mission that you need to announce to the world. Often it's quiet, deeply personal, and rooted in your values. It can be as simple as being a good parent, serving others with integrity, or standing for something you believe in. What matters is that it's meaningful to you. When life throws its inevitable chaos your way, you need a reason that makes getting back up worth it. Otherwise, strength turns into performance. It looks solid on the outside, but it crumbles under pressure because there's nothing supporting it from within. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem to stay strong through crisis, who continue showing up even when the odds are stacked against them. More often than not, they're not driven by applause, recognition, or competition. They're driven by something internal. Their strength is rooted in a clear understanding of their purpose. That's why they can endure more. That's why they don't fold when things get hard. They know what they're standing for. They know what they're building. And that knowing gives them endurance the rest of us often admire, but rarely understand. Purpose gives context to pain. When you don't know why you're suffering, it feels like punishment. But when your pain is connected to something greater, it becomes part of your story. It becomes meaningful. A soldier might endure exhausting conditions not because it's easy or enjoyable, because they believe in the mission. A parent might work multiple jobs and sacrifice their comfort because they believe in creating a better future for their child. It's the same reason why people get up at 5 a.m. to train, why some keep rebuilding after failure, and why others keep their promises even when it costs them. Purpose transforms sacrifice into investment. It makes effort feel worth it. And in moments of confusion, purpose becomes a compass. We all face situations where the path isn't clear, where doubt creeps in and the next step feels uncertain. But when you have purpose, you don't always need a perfect plan. You just need direction. You move forward, guided by a deep internal truth rather than external validation. That's a powerful kind of strength. It doesn't mean you're fearless. It means your fear doesn't own you. It means you've chosen something bigger than comfort. And that choice makes you steady, even when circumstances feel unstable. Purpose also helps with consistency. One of the most difficult things in life isn't starting. It's staying committed when the motivation fades. It's staying grounded when emotions take over. It's staying honest when shortcuts seem tempting. But when you remember your purpose, you don't need constant external motivation. You operate from principle, not mood. You make decisions not just based on what feels good in the moment, but based on what aligns with the identity you've chosen. That's how strength becomes sustainable. Because it's not something you have to hype yourself up to perform. It becomes who you are. There's another layer here too. Purpose makes setbacks less defeating. When your identity is wrapped up in outcomes, failure feels like the end. But when your identity is tied to purpose, failure is just feedback. You're not destroyed by it. You learn from it. You still feel the disappointment, but it doesn't define you. Because your worth, your effort, and your direction are coming from something much deeper than one success or one failure. Many people try to chase strength through external means, tough routines, intense discipline, impressive achievements. But without a clear purpose, all of that is just effort without soul. You can have the best habits, the strongest mindset tools, and the most structured schedule, but if you don't know why you're doing it, it will eventually collapse. Purpose is what turns discipline into devotion. It's what turns hardship into honor. It's what makes all the struggle, the discomfort, and the effort actually mean something. To stay strong no matter what, you don't need to be perfect. You just need a clear reason to keep going when it's easier to stop. And that reason, your purpose, is the foundation everything else is built on. Without it, strength is temporary. With it, strength becomes your nature. Resilience is often misunderstood as something people are either born with or without. We hear phrases like, who's just mentally tough, or she's built different, as if resilience is some rare genetic trait. But that idea is misleading and limiting. The truth is, resilience is not an inborn quality, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed, refined, and strengthened over time through deliberate practice and consistent effort. You don't wake up one day with unshakable mental toughness. You build it one choice, one action, one moment at a time. Think of resilience like a muscle. If you go to the gym once, nothing really changes. But if you show up consistently, train with intention, and push your limits bit by bit, you get stronger. The same principle applies to your mental and emotional strength. Every time you choose to do the uncomfortable thing, to show up when you're tired, to keep going when you're discouraged, to face a difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, you're reinforcing that muscle. You're telling your brain and body, we don't run from pressure, we grow through it. The key is intentional exposure to challenge. Most people try to avoid discomfort at all costs. They run from difficulty, avoid conflict, and stay inside their comfort zones. But comfort zones are dangerous not because they feel good, but because they silently weaken you. The more you avoid struggle, the more foreign it becomes. And the moment life throws something real at you, loss, rejection, failure, it shatters you. That's why resilience is trained best in the small moments. It's in the decision to get out of bed on a hard morning. It's in sticking to your word when nobody's watching. It's in choosing to move forward even when there's no applause or reward waiting for you. Training resilience doesn't require massive, dramatic challenges. It happens in everyday choices. For example, when you set a goal to read every morning and you do it even when you're tired, you're not just building discipline, you're reinforcing belief in yourself. When you show up to a workout or a meeting on a day when you feel like quitting, you're telling yourself that your commitment matters more than your emotions. These moments seem small, but they build a deep inner infrastructure. Over time, they compound and create a foundation so solid that when real storms come, you don't break, you respond. And it's important to remember that building resilience isn't about pretending things are easy. It's not about ignoring pain or acting invincible. In fact, part of becoming resilient is learning how to acknowledge struggle without being ruled by it. You feel the emotion, but you don't let it paralyze you. You accept fear, but you don't let it decide for you. That internal separation, the ability to sit with discomfort without surrendering to it, is one of the clearest signs of true mental strength. We often associate toughness with suppressing emotion, but real resilience is the opposite. It's being honest about what hurts while still choosing to move forward. It's not about denial. It's about direction. You say, yes, this is hard. Yes, I'm afraid, but no, I won't stop here. That mindset doesn't just happen. It's built. And you build it every time you stay in the hard conversation, every time you keep going after failure, every time you choose growth over comfort. There's another important piece to training resilience. It's not only about doing hard things, but doing them with integrity. It's easy to confuse toughness with numbness, to think that just because you can tolerate pain, you're strong. But pain tolerance alone isn't strength. Real resilience is purposeful. It's rooted in values. You're not just enduring for the sake of it. You're enduring because it aligns with who you want to be. That's what gives your struggle meaning, and that meaning is what sustains you when motivation fades. You also train resilience by embracing feedback and failure. Every time you fall short and choose to learn instead of retreating, you grow. Every time you hear criticism and respond with humility instead of defensiveness, you grow. That willingness to be uncomfortable in the service of becoming better. That's the heart of resilience, and it doesn't make you weak to fail. It makes you real. The most resilient people in the world are not those who've never been knocked down. They're the ones who decided to stand back up and keep learning. Resilience is not a destination. It's not something you achieve and then forget. It's a lifelong practice. And the more you embrace that process, the more you'll realize that strength isn't something you wait for. It's something you train for. And the way you train is simple: face discomfort. Show up anyway. Do hard things on purpose and keep going, especially when you don't feel like it. That's how resilience is built, one decision at a time. Strength isn't a solo pursuit. In a world that often glorifies individualism and self-reliance, we've come to believe that being strong means doing everything alone, pushing through pain silently, never asking for help, never leaning on anyone else. But that belief is misleading and ultimately harmful. True strength isn't found in isolation. It's built through connection. When you surround yourself with the right people, those who hold you accountable to your values, not your emotions, you create an environment where resilience and courage can thrive. Think about the times you've been at your lowest. Maybe you were overwhelmed by failure, hurt by rejection, or buried under stress. In those moments, it wasn't your strategies or routines that saved you. It was a person. Someone who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Someone who didn't let you give up. Someone who reminded you who you are when you were ready to forget. That's the power of connection. It doesn't take away your struggle, but it gives you the strength to keep moving through it. There's a reason why elite athletes, world-class leaders, and successful creators all talk about their inner circle, not because it's a luxury, but because it's a necessity. No one climbs alone. We may walk our own path, but it's the presence of others that strengthens our steps. When you are surrounded by people who challenge you, support you, and remind you of your purpose, your ability to withstand pressure increases exponentially. And this isn't just emotional support. It's structural. Your mindset, decisions, and direction all become clearer and more powerful when you're connected to people who lift your standard. But this kind of connection doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentionality. You have to choose relationships that are built on truth, not comfort. A true friend isn't someone who just makes you feel better. It's someone who tells you what you need to hear, even when it's hard. They hold up a mirror, not to judge you, but to keep you aligned with who you said you wanted to be. That kind of relationship creates internal strength. You stop relying on momentary emotions and you start leaning into identity. When you're tempted to quit, those people remind you of your commitment. When you want to hide, they call you out with love. They don't let you drift. Isolation, on the other hand, is a slow kind of erosion. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It happens subtly. You start pulling away from people when you're struggling, thinking you need to figure it out on your own. You stop answering texts, skip meaningful conversations, and convince yourself that silence is strength. But what you're really doing is cutting off your support system. And over time, that self-isolation creates weakness. You stop getting honest feedback. You lose perspective. You begin to believe the distorted narratives in your head. And before you know it, the weight becomes too much to carry. We were never meant to carry our burdens alone. The idea that vulnerability is weakness is one of the most damaging lies in modern culture. In reality, vulnerability is the birthplace of trust. When you allow others to see your struggle, not in a performative way, but in an honest, grounded way, you open the door for real connection. And when people are connected, they become stronger. There's something powerful about being fully seen and still fully supported. It reinforces your worth. It reminds you that you're not alone. And in that reminder, you find the courage to keep going. Even in leadership, connection plays a critical role. Great leaders don't isolate themselves above others. They embed themselves within a community. They create teams built on trust, mutual respect, and shared vision. And when adversity hits, it's that shared connection that carries the team through. In families, workplaces, friendships, connection becomes the glue that holds everything together when circumstances try to pull it apart. And it's not just about receiving support, it's about giving it. One of the fastest ways to build your own strength is to help someone else through their struggle. When you stand with someone in their pain, you discover parts of yourself that are stronger than you realized. You gain perspective, empathy, and a deeper understanding of your own purpose. Supporting others reinforces your own resilience. It reminds you that you're not powerless. You can make a difference even in the middle of your own storms. Strength is not isolation. It's not silence. It's not pretending you're fine when you're not. Strength is choosing connection, choosing to be seen, to be supported, and to support others in return. When you build your life around people who speak truth, live with integrity, and walk beside you no matter what, you gain access to a deeper kind of courage. One that's not built on ego, but on trust. One that doesn't burn out because it's constantly being renewed through love, honesty, and shared growth. That's the kind of strength that endures. The words you say to yourself every day are among the most powerful forces shaping your life. People often underestimate the impact of self-talk. They treat it like background noise, something casual and insignificant. But over time, the voice inside your head becomes the most influential voice you'll ever hear. It narrates your life, shapes your beliefs, and defines what you believe you're capable of. If that voice is constantly tearing you down, feeding you fear, doubt, and shame, then no matter how much external motivation you receive, your internal foundation will stay weak. Strength starts with language. Not the language you speak to others, but the language you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. When you're in a moment of failure, disappointment, or struggle, what do you say to yourself? Do you call yourself names? Do you tell yourself you're not good enough, not strong enough, or not meant for more? That voice becomes your reality. You can't separate your thoughts from your actions for long. Eventually, you act in alignment with what you believe about yourself, and what you believe is influenced by what you say to yourself repeatedly. The person who constantly tells themselves they're a failure will avoid opportunities. They won't take risks. They'll play small because they've already convinced themselves they're not capable. The internal conversation determines the external direction. Changing your self-talk doesn't mean lying to yourself. You're not pretending everything's fine when it's not. You're not sugarcoating reality. You're choosing to speak from truth rather than fear. There's a difference between saying, I can't do this, and saying, this is hard, but I'm learning. One is a dead end. The other is a path forward. Language shapes mindset, and mindset shapes behavior. When you replace destructive language with constructive truth, you start to unlock a different level of resilience. You stop identifying with the setback and start identifying with the process. Self-talk becomes especially important when no one else is around to encourage you. It's easy to be strong when you have people cheering you on. But what happens when it's just you early in the morning, late at night, in those private battles no one else sees? That's when your internal dialogue either lifts you up or tears you down. The strongest people aren't the ones who never feel weak. They're the ones who have trained their inner voice to speak life even in moments of doubt. They've created a default setting that aligns with growth, progress, and purpose. But that voice doesn't come naturally for most people. Many of us grew up hearing criticism, judgment, or constant pressure. Over time, we internalized those voices and made them our own. That's why it takes intentional effort to shift that inner script. You have to practice speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love and believe in. You have to catch yourself in those automatic patterns. I always mess things up. I'm not cut out for this. Why do I even try? And consciously redirect them. Not with false hope, but with grounded truth. I made a mistake, but I'm not a failure. I'm struggling today, but I've gotten through worse. This doesn't define me. It develops me. These kinds of statements aren't magical fixes, but they are mental anchors. They keep you steady in the middle of emotional storms. Repetition matters. The more you say something, the more you believe it. That's why negative self-talk is so dangerous. It doesn't just reflect your current state, it reinforces it. The more you tell yourself you're not capable, the more evidence your brain will look for to support that belief. But the opposite is also true. If you train your inner voice to speak strength, courage, and truth, you start noticing moments that reinforce those beliefs. Your brain becomes wired to support your growth instead of sabotaging it. One of the most powerful things you can do is to create a language system that aligns with your values and goals. For example, instead of saying, I have to do this, you say, I get to do this. That shift turns obligation into opportunity. Instead of saying, I'm scared, you say, I'm stretching. That turns fear into growth. Instead of saying, this is impossible, you say, this is unfamiliar, but I'm learning. That turns resistance into resilience. These aren't just cute phrases. They're mental frameworks. They give you language that pulls you forward instead of holding you back. Over time, as you train that voice to speak with clarity, confidence, and purpose, you start to see yourself differently. You begin to trust yourself more. You stop relying on the world to validate your worth because your internal system is already doing that work. And from that place, real strength begins to grow. Not because you're constantly hyping yourself up, but because you've chosen to build a relationship with yourself based on truth, discipline, and belief. The words you speak shape the person you become, and the person you become shapes the life you lead. Speak wisely. Speak with strength, because your inner voice will either build you or break you, one word at a time. One of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to developing strength is waiting for adversity to arrive before deciding who they want to be. They live reactively, hoping that when pressure hits, they'll somehow rise to the occasion. But strength doesn't magically appear in moments of crisis. It's not something you summon out of thin air. It's something you build long before the storm ever comes. The foundation of real lasting strength is identity, a clear decision about who you are and what you stand for. When you've made that decision in advance, life doesn't knock you off course so easily. Challenges may shake you, but they don't break you because your character was already chosen. Your identity, the internal definition of who you are, determines your response to external circumstances. When you haven't built that identity deliberately, you're left to be shaped by whatever comes your way. You become reactive You let your mood dictate your actions. You chase comfort. You make impulsive decisions. But when your identity is grounded in values, in intention, in clarity, your decisions come from principle, not pressure. You don't have to figure everything out in the moment because you've already set the standard. That doesn't mean you're rigid. It means you're rooted. You know who you are. And because of that, you know how to move forward even when life is uncertain. Think of a tree in a storm. The wind might bend its branches. The rain might strip its leaves. But if the roots are deep, the tree stands. That's what identity does for you. It anchors you, and you build those roots through small, consistent actions, not dramatic, one-time events. It happens in the quiet, ordinary moments when no one is watching, when you keep a promise to yourself, when you choose integrity over convenience, when you follow through not because it's easy, but because it's aligned with who you said you are. These moments build character. They create internal structure. And when you do it consistently, your identity becomes strong enough to hold you up when pressure arrives. Most people think strength is about what you do when everything goes wrong, but it's actually about what you do every day when nothing is going wrong. That's where the real training happens. You prepare in peace for what you'll need in chaos. If you don't train in the quiet, you won't stand in the noise. Strength is the product of choices made long before they're tested. That's why preparation is power. You don't rise to the level of your potential in a crisis. You fall to the level of your training, and your training is your character, your habits, your discipline, your decisions in the dark. Deciding who you are means being clear about your non-negotiables. What are the values you won't compromise no matter what? What kind of person are you committed to becoming, regardless of how you feel? These are not emotional preferences. They are anchored choices. Without this clarity, you're vulnerable to every emotion, every setback, every opinion. But with clarity, you become steady. You stop seeking validation from the outside world because you've already validated yourself internally. That self-knowledge becomes a compass, guiding you through the unknown. This identity isn't something you perform for others. It's not about perception. It's about reality. The strongest people are often the quietest about their strength because it's not performative. It's not a show. It's a decision they've made deep within themselves. They've chosen to be honest, to be disciplined, to be kind, to be focused, not when it's easy, but especially when it's not, because that's who they are. And because of that, they don't have to scramble for strength when life gets messy. It's already in them. Preparation is not a sign of fear. It's a sign of wisdom. It's the recognition that storms are inevitable. And the best way to face them is to be ready. When you've spent time building yourself emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you're not shaken by every shift in the environment. You're not destroyed by a bad day, a bad month, or even a bad year. You bend, but you don't break. You adjust, but you don't abandon who you are, because your identity was not formed by circumstance. It was chosen by you deliberately. Your strength is not built in the storm. It is revealed there. It's built in the early mornings, the late nights, the hard conversations, the quiet commitments. It's built in the way you treat people when you gain power and in the way you carry yourself when you lose it. It's built in what you do when nobody is watching. These are the moments that define you. And the more of these moments you collect, the stronger your character becomes. So when the storm comes, and you won't need to search for strength. You'll already be standing in it. Staying strong no matter what isn't about pretending to be unshakable or immune to pain. It's about becoming deeply rooted in who you are, what you stand for, and why you continue forward. Strength is built long before the crisis shows up through purpose-driven living, the daily practice of resilience, the intentional relationships you cultivate, the language you use with yourself, and the unshakable identity you choose in the quiet. You don't need to wait for life to test you start becoming strong. You can begin now with every decision you make, every habit you form, and every truth you tell yourself. Because real strength isn't about being untouched by struggle. It's about standing tall in the middle of it, not because it's easy, but because you've trained for it. And that kind of strength, that's a decision, one you make every single day.